Hello, this is Rhonda from I'll Walk With You. What a joy it is to introduce you to our next guest, Patrick Risk. Patrick is the author of One Day at a Time, Daily Hope for Those Navigating Their Own Path of Healing. He endeavors each day to live and breathe hope in all that he does, from managing his Facebook communities, Brightness of Hope and Worldwide Unified, to sharing daily messages of inspiration that are followed and shared by hundreds of thousands each week, including myself. Patrick also volunteers in various capacities as a chaplain and spiritual care advisor. He has a great passion for improving the world around him and strives one day at a time to live the mantra of being the change you wish to see in the world. Patrick's advocacy for hope was born out of his experiences in facing and overcoming great adversity in his life, surviving years of sexual abuse as a child, overcoming a near-fatal eating disorder, and battling suicidal ideation from identity issues have all prepared him to be the fighter for hope that he is today. Never giving up, always fighting forward, Patrick was just 20 years old when he received his undergraduate degree from the University of Northern Colorado. At the age of 24, he received his Master of Business Administration from the University of Utah. At the age of 25, he was certified as a chaplain from the World Spiritual Health Organization. I first started seeing his post on Worldwide Unified on Facebook and was so moved by his vulnerability and positivity that I started following him. I wasn't sure if he would even see my message, but I loved his post so much that I thought it would be worth the effort to ask and see if he would be willing to be a guest on our podcast. He responded with a yes within the hour. It was a true honor to talk with him and hear a part of his tremendous story of hope, faith, and love. Thank you again for joining us, Patrick, and thank you for being such a beautiful light in this world.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to I'll Walk With You, the podcast where we have conversations about how we can all be more unified on our walk through life together. My name is Dakota Moses.
I'm Rhonda Monson, and this is our guest, Patrick Risk. Patrick, we're super excited to have you. This is our first time meeting Patrick, but Patrick has been I'm going to say social media influencer with so many good things. I've been kind of following you now for a while, and just when you post, I read it because I like what you have to say, and you're on the same groups I'm on. And so that's how I kind of made the connection to who you are. And I'm like, oh, I think Patrick would be a great guest. And so I sent you a Facebook message and you replied, which I was so excited because I've sent Facebook messages to several who don't look, they get too many, I guess, and they're too popular. So thank you because you're popular. You have a lot of followers and you replied, and I really thank you. And I'm excited to have you on as a guest for the I'll Walk With You podcast. You really do, just your posts are so positive in a world that is so hard. You put out love again and again and again. And I'm just like, oh, I like this person. So you get to tell us a little bit more about you. I just kind of went on for a while. So.
No, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm glad. It's always nice I love writing. I love writing inspirational or, hope-filled messages. And so it's always nice to hear when they resonate with people or can bring a little, hopefully, joy or light or hope into people's world. And so yeah, I've been doing that for a while. I mean, it's not necessarily like my full-time job or anything. I just like writing, like I said. So ever since, like, I don't know, probably like 2010-ish, I've been kind of doing that. I've done more, just depending on what's going on in my life. I've done more or less, that type of thing. I am kind of administer or manage a few different Facebook groups. One I started on my own. It's called Brightness of Hope, and then I do one that's called Worldwide Unified, and then there's another one that's kind of just kind of Latter-day Saints Worldwide. And so Yeah, I enjoy writing and also sharing. I published a book in it's been like four, actually there it is right there, one day at a time. It just based on kind of my life story. It really kind of is a compilation of a lot of my writings, that type of thing. But also goes over. So when I was young, when I was from when I was like 6 until 12, I was abused, sexually abused by a cousin who's 10 years older than me. And so that was eventually it came to light when I was around 16 because I had an eating disorder. I got down to a really low weight and I was going to have to be hospitalized. And my parents were kind of obviously wondering what is going on? Like, why is this happening? And so then I went to a counselor, a therapist, a psychologist, and that's when kind of the abuse kind of came to light at that time. And then, yeah, long story short, obviously it was a lot of trauma to process, go through. I eventually kind of told Child Protective Services. My cousin was arrested. He was put in prison for 15 years. And it really tore apart our family. So that was definitely hard. My immediate family kind of like stood around me, but obviously there was some in the family that were kind of like, you should have just forgiven, forgive and forget, forgiveness, that type of thing. And so it
You
was
can
definitely a
forgive and
hard
have
thing.
boundaries.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing was, and why I eventually, because he was a school bus driver, he was a scoutmaster, so I just didn't want any more little boys to get hurt. But anyway, so that's been a journey. And so that's kind of partly where a lot of my writing comes from, is born from that as well. And, it's one of those things that you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy, if you will, but it's also something you wouldn't change for the world because it's made me who I am and it's made me feel like I can understand and connect with people better. Because we all go through something. We all have some type of trial, whatever that might be, that we've gone through in our life. And so it's really, I have found that when you open yourself up, and again, not everybody can do this, and it's okay if you can't, but I have found when you open yourself up and are vulnerable, then it invites other people to be vulnerable as well. And it kind of
Absolutely.
opens up this sacred space of dialogue and healing. And so that's what I've tried to kind of do on social media. And it's been great. It's been rewarding to be able to have people reach out and say, I went through something similar, or I didn't go through something similar, but I have this in my life that makes me relate. And it's definitely super powerful.
That, like, thank you. Like, I thank you. And thank you for your willingness to just go, okay, here it is, blah. You know?
That's-
I really thank you for that, your vulnerability. I agree with you. When people are vulnerable, it becomes a sacred space and it becomes safe for others. By you sharing your story, you do open a space for others to feel safe, to feel like, oh, I can breathe here. I'm not going to be in a space of judgment here or whatever. I would love to know how you didn't turn bitter because your posts are so uplifting and hope filled.
Yeah.
What
No,
was that for you to
yeah, it's a
not
great
be bitter?
question. And it's one of those things because I can understand why people, become bitter or jaded or, especially like again, another part of my story, if you will, that is I'm also gay. And that was hard coming to terms with that, obviously, being a very active. I love the church. And so kind of figuring out what I wanted to or what I do with that. And so that kind of I came to terms with that more so in like 2018. I actually got married to a woman, and it didn't work out. And that's kind of when I really came to terms with like I always tied same-sex attraction or whatever you want to I always tied that to being abused by a man, obviously.
Right.
um and I eventually had to come to a place where I had to stop asking like what if I wasn't abused, would I not have the same-sex attraction, would I, you know and I had to stop asking what if, and I just had to start living my what now. Like, it doesn't matter. I don't know what I would be like, but this is what it is now. And so I'm attracted to men. What do I do with it now? And so eventually I kind of went through that process in 2018, and it was definitely a journey. But so I'm sorry, I brought that whole other
It's amazing.
bomb up as well because to you, back to your question in terms of not becoming bitter. um it's been hard because obviously, the person that abused me, he was active. A lot of the times when he was abusing me, he was wearing a CTR ring. Obviously he had pictures of Jesus on the walls and so it was, so, he participated in my baptism, and so like, so definitely hard to not become jaded and bitter and think about how can somebody that professes this do that. And I think the thing that's always kept me grounded, and is, and I don't know if it's just innate in me or I don't know where it comes from necessarily, but I've just always maintained a really strong personal relationship with my Savior. And that's grounded me in knowing that everybody is flawed, and everybody's got issues. And again, it doesn't excuse necessarily. And again, it's not like the forgive and forget, that type of thing. But it does put into context of you can't judge, like, again, the church, a whole institution, God, Christ, you can't judge them on the behaviors of somebody else because that's not fair. It's not fair to them. It's not fair to you. And so it's just kind of really developing your own relationship, and your own kind of understanding of what love is, what, faith is, because only you can determine that. Nobody else can really determine it for you. And so I think that's always helped me not kind of be just judgmental and jaded, is because I can look at people as broken and flawed people, just like I'm a broken and flawed person, and realize that I can't hold them to this standard because they aren't at that standard. Nobody is. And so it's like, put it into context, if you will.
It's beautiful. I love what you were saying, rather than the this happened to me and now what if this didn't happen to me? What if, who would I be outside of all this? And we can't. We absolutely can't go back to whatever has shaped this or that, or whatever it is. We can't go back, but we can go, what now?
Mhm.
Who do I choose to be now? Who am I now with all of this? What are some of the beliefs that I have now with all of this? Just even in some of my own trauma in my own life, I could look at, well, what if that never happened?
Yeah.
And we get to choose, who am I with all of this? Because this is
Yeah.
all a part of my story.
Yeah, because I mean, I think you're exactly right in terms of what I found, and that's often times where like some of the bitterness comes from, I think, is people get trapped in this kind of this perpetual cycle of, again, what if, and it just becomes very toxic and negative because you living in that space, you don't control anything, you don't control it. And when you don't control something, you feel obviously out of control, and then you start assigning blame, or you start, just again, that's where I think some of the bitterness comes in. But when you step into, or step out of what if and then step into what now, you kind of take your control back. You say, all right, that happened to me. Now, like you said, what do I want to do with it now? Who do I want to become now? What kind of goodness or energy or positivity or whatever do I want to put into the world because of what happened to me? And so you kind of break the chain, if you will, and you say, okay, I'm stopping the past, this past cycle of what if and toxic, and being like toxic, and you step into all right, now I'm a creator. I can create my future. And that's just powerful.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We shared before we started this video, we shared with you that we just had a tragic loss in our family. And I know for a fact that a big chunk of my family, including myself, are definitely doing a lot of what ifs. We're definitely doing a lot of, oh, I should have, a lot of oh, I should have. And I think this topic is so important to remember for anybody who's lost a loved one. We lost our loved one to suicide.
Oh,
Just to remember that it's what now? Because I don't know why I tied that in, maybe because it's so raw and it's so fresh and it's right now current for our family. But tragedies do happen.
mhm.
It is a part of life and it's a part of what shapes us and grows us. And we get to look at the what now? What can I take from this hell?
Yeah,
But what can I take from it and how can I love better? Because that's where I've been like the last several days. I'm like, how can I love better? I want to love better. I feel like I love people pretty hard, but I want to love harder. I
yeah,
want to love bigger. I want to link arms with people I disagree with and link arms with them anyhow and hug them and tell them I love them anyhow because that's what I'm taking from that. And that's what I hear that you've taken from all this stuff that you've been through, really hard things. Like I'm putting out messages of hope. I'm putting out messages of, peace and light. And because that's what drew me to you were your messages of hope and peace and light. And I think I did read a post that you did about some of the trauma you'd been through, but I had forgot till you just messaged it. And I was like, I was drawn to your light,
yeah. Well,
just absolutely to
well,
your light.
well, thank you. I think well, first, I'm so sorry that you guys are going through that. Like I said, I serve on I serve as a chaplain just as on like crisis text line. And so a lot of the people are, messaging in when they're contemplating suicide. And I know just how hard that is. Like you said, of especially for those that are left behind, of wondering what you could have done, what you should have, like you said, shoulda, coulda, woulda. And it's a hard place to be because you can never answer that question. And so, but I think, like you said, in terms of like that, like and like we've been talking about that, what now? What do you want to do with it now? And also realizing. I think something that's been helpful for me, and it's easy to say because it's easy to say, and then obviously difficult to actually feel. But we'll often hear about, obviously this life is just a short, moment in our eternity. And that's nice to say, but it feels, I mean, this life is very important and everything we know is this life. And so it's like, but I think there is something to be said about looking at that internal perspective, and realizing that, this isn't it. And so we are going to get to see those loved ones again. And they're still continuing on their journey. And although their journey here ended, um, what they're doing next is they're still learning and growing. We never stop learning and growing. I mean, I think sometimes our view of heaven is we've made it. And now we can sit back and we're strumming harps and just enjoying life, eating
Floating on the
grapes.
cloud.
Yeah, and I don't think that's the case at all. We never stop growing. And that's not, I mean, I think some people could think of that and they're like, that sounds exhausting. Like, when do I just get a rest, and that type of thing. But we need to look at it in a positive way of like, we're always we're always changing and becoming and learning and growing and encountering new people and experiencing new love, and it's beautiful, and it's kind of, you just got to look at it that way and realize that, some of the relationships that we've had that either ended tragically, because either they passed away or sometimes just because people come into our lives and then they leave and it's just the season. But they might come in again at some future time in another life, if you will, or whatever, however you want to think about it. But it's kind of we're we're energy that's always moving and growing and becoming. And I think that's exciting and powerful to think about.
It is.
Wow.
It is. You know, this overarching theme that we have of, uh, well, what do I do with it now, and not asking the should have, could haves, and would haves, um, just really resonates with me as well. I also experienced some sexual abuse as a child, and um, just other unrelated to that, other just really difficult experiences through my life, and it's led me to where I am now, which is not at all what I would have anticipated or expected or thought that my life would look like. You know, when I was a kid and I was fantasizing of what my life would be, this certainly wasn't it. But I wouldn't, I agree with you. I wouldn't trade it for anything. I wouldn't trade it for the world. I think that my life really is so beautiful, and I am realizing how much power I have for good within the position that I find myself now in this moment without changing anything. Um, it's it's a it's a difficult journey to get to that place. It's not all filled with rainbows and butterflies. In order for the rainbow to happen, the rain has to happen. In order for the butterfly to be, it has to, completely dissolve and be reborn. It's not an easy or picturesque process
Mhm.
of becoming. Um, yeah, so just thank you so much for what you're doing. I
Oh,
really, truly appreciate it. I would be very interested to hear what, well, a few things, but I guess we'll start with more of your childhood experience of growing up. I know that you grew up in Logan, Utah. My husband is also from Logan, so that definitely has a soft place in my heart. I've lived there as well.
beautiful.
It's a beautiful place, um, but I would be very interested to hear a little bit more of your early years with your development, and um, maybe some of your expectations that you had for your life, and times of struggle when you realized that maybe that wasn't going to happen exactly as you imagined.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And you bring up a great point, just like you were saying, in terms of I think for probably many of us, I mean, some people, I think obviously they always thought they would have this life, and sometimes they get that life, whether they always thought they'd be a teacher, that type of thing. But I think for many people, life turns out a little bit different than you expected or planned, as it kind of unfolds. And I think I would hope that many like you said, you feel and I feel of that you look back and you say, yeah, that was hard. That was awful. That was, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, but also I wouldn't change it for the world because I hope everybody can get to a place where they look at themselves in the mirror and they love the person that they see staring back at them. And they realize that all of the heartache, all the hard times and the good times have made that person that's staring back at them. And so you should love every single one of those experiences because you love who you become. And I hope everybody can get to that place. But it's a journey, like you said. And actually why it's become ever since my world kind of came crashing down around me, like I said, around when I was like 16, with the eating disorder, gonna have to be hospitalized, and the abuse came out and going through all of that, ever since then, I've kind of have had a life motto, and that's why it's the title of my book of one day at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's 1 second at a time. And I think that's just sometimes that's how we keep going forward. You just kind of one day at a time, you hold on to the good, the things that are getting you through, and you just keep trudging through the bad one day at a time. And so I've definitely um had that, like I said, that's been a theme of my life. In terms of like growing up and my experience in I loved Logan, small town, kind of, my cousins, where I was most of the abuse happened, they lived in Millville, which is, just outside of Logan. And so we were definitely small farming town. They lived on a farm. And I loved it. I mean, I loved every minute of, growing up. Being at their house was always so great. You could explore, and, there's just, and so we would play night games, like, and like, so the abuse never was like traumatic necessarily, because it was always more like fun and games. And it was, my cousin was somebody, which a lot of times is the case with child abuse, is somebody I trusted, somebody that I looked up to. So it wasn't necessarily ever traumatic necessarily, until obviously as I got older, and then realized, the impact and that type of thing that it
Mm.
actually did have on me. And then, like I said, of, even eventually, and that didn't come until later in life as well, in terms of like the, being gay and the same-sex attraction, and whether that was because of the abuse or not, I really can't answer that because I have no idea. I don't have, the abuse started when I was 6, so I don't really have any memory before then, and that goes to the heart of a question that, some people in the LGBTQ community will face, in terms of like, are you born gay? Is it a
Mm.
nurture versus nature? And I don't know if that's a helpful conversation, really. I mean, it's fine to have that conversation, but the fact is like I said, it doesn't matter what if, it's what is. I mean, the fact is you're gay. How that happened, was it because of the way you were raised? Did you not identify with your father figure? Whatever the case may be, does that really matter? No, it matters that that's who you are. And so let's talk about that, is kind of my view. So I think that's kind of, in terms of, like growing up, I had challenges, and, I mean, it was interesting, obviously, being, I knew I always had like that same-sex attraction and that type of thing, but again, I just never knew where to like place it necessarily. And then obviously faith just kind of overrides it, and you're like, oh, that's bad, bad thought, go away, and, that type of thing. And so, and then like I would get teased. I got teased by some kids growing up, guys, of like, "Oh, you're gay," that type of thing. And it's like, "No, I'm not," you're like, and that type of thing. And so, but I had a good growing up too. I mean, I was like, I wasn't necessarily like, I was never good at like sports or that type of thing, but I did like cross country or swimming and that type of thing, and did like choir. And then I was like student body officer. I was homecoming royalty, and so I wasn't like popular necessarily, but I was one of those kids that like, I was like, they have like, you have a cliques or like people, that type of thing. I was the one that was like, I was in everyone. Like I just would go to every group. Like, and so I
Yeah.
was just all like, I'd go talk to the popular sports kids. I go talk with like the nerdy chess club kids. Like I just loved people, and I just would go all over. And so that's kind of who I've always been. And so I mean, I have great parents, great family. And so that I was lucky to have that. Obviously some people that have been through abuse, or, some of the things I've been through, and then don't have the support of their parents, or, their immediate family. That I can't imagine how hard that is. And so at least I've had them. They've been my rock in many ways. So it's always great to have, those living angels, with you that, really help you through. And so for those that don't have that, that's where, I love what you guys are doing, and people who can create spaces like this, and communities where people that don't have the support can find the support. Obviously, find their family if their family is not, there to support them. And so I think, because that goes to the heart of like, we're all family, really. We're all children of God. And so I think hopefully we're all finding ways to be there for people, especially those that don't have people or their family. I think that's really important. So
Absolutely. Thank you. I think that ties well into, or I would think so, into my other question. I'm very interested to hear more about um, your work as a chaplain.
Yes.
yeah, yeah. So like I said, I don't know if I think maybe when we were talking before we started recording, but so when I finished my MBA, I've mostly been most of my career I've been more like business planning. I worked for the church for like 11 years of my career. I was the planning manager, so planned where the church built meeting houses um, but and so I've always been kind of like got my undergrad in business, I got my MBA, and so I've always been more business, process improvement, project management, that type of thing. Even though when I take I love personality assessments and that type of thing. I just love I love things like that of whether they're accurate or not. It just is fun to learn, how you work, how you think, how people, and so. Anyways, whenever I take like any type of personality or career assessment, it always points me to be like, I should be a psychologist or obviously if I was a different faith tradition, they would say like I should be a clergy or that type of thing. Obviously, we don't have paid clergy or that's not a profession you can go into in the LDS faith. But but I just never went that route, probably because shame on me, in some regards, but it doesn't pay well. And so obviously business pays well. But I've always gotten fulfillment in in that space in terms of more nonprofit, counseling, that type of thing. I've always tried to get that fulfillment and that passion that I have for that in other ways, like obviously volunteering and that type of thing. So, anyways, when I finished my MBA, I did a year-long program because I love learning and that type of thing. It was a year-long program to become a certified chaplain. It was called the World Spiritual Health Organization. They were associated with actually the VA hospital here in Salt Lake, and so it was an awesome program. The year-long program, it was more like almost like personal or kind of therapy, if anything. We were like
Mm,
exploring ourselves and going deep within to understand obviously our trauma. So then you can be in a better place to sit with people in their trauma is really kind of what the program was designed around, which it was really powerful, amazing. And then ever since then, as part of the program, you had to do some clinical hours and that type of thing. And so that's when I started volunteering at I did it at Ronald McDonald House. I did it at Huntsman Cancer Institute. I've done it at a few different hospices, and then the crisis text line. I've done a lot as well, and so again, I just kind of do it on the side, and it's really just about again, and we talked about this a lot in the program when we went through it, as we term it, of sitting with people in their ashes, of those moments when we're like totally the most vulnerable. Again, hospice care, so families that have lost a family member, crisis text line, people that are contemplating suicide, Ronald McDonald House, people that have children that are, terminally ill or have cancer. So these places where the moments in people's life where they're really burned down, they've been burned down to the ground, they're sitting in ashes now, and it's about stepping into that space and not coming with any solutions because as a chaplain, you're not certified, you're not a psychologist, you really shouldn't be offering necessarily advice, but it's really about just being present. It's just
mm,
about being
Just
there and being somebody they can talk to or not talk to. Sometimes it's just about sitting in complete silence with them and just being another human sitting in silence with them. And so it's just about sharing that sacred space with people and their moments of most vulnerability and heartbreak. And so that can be very scary. And also very rewarding and powerful as well. So that's kind of what I've done as a chaplain, and that's kind of what really chaplains are really meant for. Obviously, everybody thinks of chaplaincy a little bit differently. A lot of people think chaplaincy and associate it with like military or hospitals or that type of thing, but really chaplains are really, again, it's non-denominational. It's, people with faith or no faith, but it's just about connecting with a human and saying you're not alone is basically what it is.
So beautiful. You're our second chaplain. That's just so cool. I didn't know you were a chaplain. So you're our second chaplain as a
Oh, that's
guest.
so cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm just like learning all these things. And I have another friend who's a chaplain. So I'm like, wow, this is cool
Yeah,
work.
Cool. Yeah.
it is. It is truly. I'm also really interested to hear. You briefly mentioned that you were married in 2018 and that did not work out. Share as much or as little as you'd like about that, but I'm interested to hear kind of what that process looked like for you, going in and then coming through on the other side, and where you're at now with your sexual orientation and your faith, and just what that actually looks like for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Great questions. I think so, obviously growing up a member of the church and being active, obviously I worked at the church, um, my idea and expectation was always to, marry a woman, have a family, get married in the temple, all those types of things. And so that was my objective and my goal. We went to like a singles ward. I dated a lot of girls, and then I and yeah, I just kind of suppressed, if you will, the same-sex attraction, or again, always, like I've said, always tied it back to, well, that's just because I was abused. And so once I don't know, once I get married and meet the right person, then that will just, I don't know, magically fix and go away, and so that was kind of my thinking and kind of where I was just marching forward. And so I met, and she's an amazing person. And we obviously, when it all fell, all happened, like I said, the marriage fell apart. It was not pretty. It was not good. I hurt her, and obviously I feel horrible and that type of thing. We a few years ago we reconciled though, and now we kind of are back in touch and that type
Oh,
of thing. And then
so glad.
she's just an amazing person. But obviously one of the things I fell in love with her as an individual, as a person. Again, it wasn't necessarily sexual in any way. It was just she's an amazing person. We connected. We had a lot in common. She loved me, unconditionally, and so that was just nice to have somebody that just loved me and supported me, and I felt the same about her. And so we dated for a long time. I think we dated for like, I don't know, 5 years or something.
Wow, that's
And then
unheard of in the
for the
LDS
LDS Church,
church.
yeah, for Mormon culture. But and so and she knew about really everything. She knew about my trauma, my the abuse. She knew about the same-sex attraction in the context again of
Abuse.
it kind of being with the abuse. And so it's kind of
Yeah.
compartmentalized into that. But she didn't, I guess, know the full extent of it because I didn't really know the full extent of it, if you will. And so, anyways, so yeah, we were open with each other. We were going into, I think, with our eyes wide open and trying to do the best thing. I think both of us were. But once we got married, it wasn't a long marriage at all. And that's because it was like one of those things that as soon as it happened, like I knew. I was like, oh my gosh, what did I just do? Like what did I like I pushed myself to do it and I did it. And then it's like once I did it, I was like, oh, and like things just started crumbling down on me. And I was like, I can't do this. And it was like one of those things like I could keep like trying to do it and like 5 years down the road would we have a kid, and then eventually like I would be like I can't do it anymore. And so it was like one of those things that I wanted, like that's why it wasn't long, because it was one of those things like I knew, and that was the one thing that was hard because she was like, we gotta keep at it. Like she was like, you can't just quit. And I was like, but I know, like I can't, and it would be better for us just to like part ways now than to again be 5 years down the road. And so, anyways, it was a hard process. It was very hard going through that, but eventually, again, the marriage ended. And then that's when I started my personal discovery of again dropping the stop asking what if and tying the sexual attraction to the abuse and just step into owning like, no, I'm gay. So now what am I gonna do with it? Like, yep, okay. And so, I went to like North Star. I uh didn't I mean I read like, some of like Charlie Bird and like what's his name? I don't know. Obviously, you have you have Tom Christopherson. You have like so many people in that space that I read their books. I just like tried to really hear other people's stories and figure out for my own what do I want to do. And that's one thing that I've learned that there's no one size fits all. Every
No.
individual
No.
is different, and
Yes.
so respecting that I think is key for anybody,
Yes.
and
Big
Couldn't
also.
nod.
agree more.
Big nod. Yes,
Yeah.
respecting that. Like my friends who are in those opposite sex marriages, but one is gay, respecting them. I was in
Yeah.
that marriage. Dakota's dad is gay, and that's why we're not married anymore. And
But you
I,
were for 24
but we were
years.
for 24 years.
Yeah.
So, and it was hard. And so I'm hearing
Me
yours
too.
and like, oh, I didn't want to go put her through that and
Yeah.
put the kids through that. So kudos.
Yeah.
I'm
But it
glad we
was
were married for 24 years, but kudos to you.
exactly.
And so we just respect everyone for where they're at. Dakota's married to his husband, and kudos to him for
Yep.
finding a loving partner who I adore. And so, yay. But like, we have to respect people, like people who are like, going to the temple, super important to me. I'm gonna, great, kudos to
Yeah.
you. How can I support you? How can I walk with you?
Yep.
How can I walk? We have to respect
Exactly.
everybody.
Exactly. And also realize that people people change. And that's give them the grace to do that. In terms of somebody that might have been in uh, mixed orientation marriage might reach a point sometime where they say, I can't uh, I can't live that. That's not my truth anymore. I can't live like that. And so maybe, and then it's realized like, okay, I mean, obviously, again, we don't want, again, it's realizing that, and that's one thing that was very powerful to me when all this came down, and it's wonderful when you can have supportive parents and loving parents of my mom when I realized like I can't, like what did I just do? I can't do this. And I remember one time I just like broke down. I was just bawling in my car, and I was like, I can't do this. And like I called my mom, and my mom's like, it's okay. Nothing nothing done can't be undone. Like it's okay. And so realizing that like you can, again, I mean that's what the atonement's all about in terms of our faith, but it's realizing that things can change, and that's okay, and letting people change and giving them that space to do so. And so I've seen a lot of people that, at one time they're pounding, and I was that person too, in terms of they're pounding the drum of, no, the right way, you gotta get married to a woman and just deny those feelings. Or maybe on the flip side, somebody might say, no, the right way, you gotta leave the church and go live this lifestyle, marry a man and just deny your faith, and that was all wrong. That's the right way. And it's like, no, the right way is whatever way is right for you. And not judging anybody else on their path. And so I've seen people that, have been in mixed orientation marriages, the marriages fell apart, then the spouse goes and, marries a man, and that's fine. I've seen some people that went and lived and married a man and lived that lifestyle, and then like Tom Christopherson, and then they decided, I'm going to come back to the church and I'm going to do that now. Great. That's your season of life. That's your journey. And so I think it's again just just loving people and just respecting where they're at, I think is key. Like you guys said, just, walking with them and just learning from them and loving them. And I think that's obviously what Christ would do. That's what he did when he was here on the earth. He just loved people and walked with them. And, obviously he would give them, and that was his right as the savior and the only perfect person. He would give correction and counsel and that type of thing. But for us, let's just love people.
Yeah, for sure. Amen. I love that so much. Like, you're just making me smile. I'm like, preach. If this was like a Christian concert, I'd be like, yeah, amen. Like, I love it. You're saying everything I believe. See, that's why I like your content so much, because you speak my language. I'm
Just
so
about,
happy in this moment.
just about love. Yeah.
It's about love, right? It really is. We have in the LDS faith, not everybody who listens to this is a member of the church, but in the LDS faith, we have different leaders and, bishop, and then we have a stake president, which is over a bigger area. Our current stake president in this area, he's like, and we call them judges in Israel. You know this language, but, like the bishop and then the stake president, and our stake president's like, I don't want to be a judge anymore.
Yeah.
I just want to love everybody. Like, I don't want to judge anything, because he's so not a judgmental person at all. So you're just saying that, and he's like, I just want to love.
Yeah. It's so, and I think it's hard. And I love seeing the way the church is growing.
Growing.
And
A lot of ways to go, but it's
Yeah, yeah,
growing.
yeah. I love to see what's happening there as well. Because I think we need to make more room in our congregations and in the church in terms of for people that don't fit whatever mold we think they need to fit.
Yeah.
And I think, obviously our meeting houses say visitors welcome, but are they really? I don't know. And so I think we need to truly practice that in
Yeah.
terms of it open to everybody, no matter what, where they are in their journey of life. And I think that's, in my opinion, that's obviously the church that I think Christ would have is just open to everybody and everybody feeling like they have a place in a home because I think like you said of just not I have found and again kind of going back to one of our earlier topics in terms of that bitterness or that type of thing, what I have found and one thing that's helped me out in my life is the people that are most judgmental or the people with the loudest voices condemning people or whatever the case may be, usually those are usually the people that are most injured. They're the people that are most hurt, most wounded,
Hmm.
and they're just basically projecting their wounds onto you. They've either been hurt by somebody that looks like you, or acts like you, or talks like you, or lives like you, and now they're taking that hurt out on you. And so, looking at people with that lens, you can kind of feel compassion for them a little bit, even though they're saying something hurtful to you or they're being judgmental. You can look at them and say, that what they say in the South when they say "bless your heart," they don't mean it positively, but but it's like bless your heart, like you've been hurt, and that's why you're reacting this way. So let's talk about your hurt and let's not talk about my sin, if you will. And so it's like, I think that's just what I've found. And so I think we need to be when people are angry or expressing some type of judgment or anger, like I said, that's coming from a place of wound and hurt. And so when you hear people that are talking in a place of love and acceptance, those are people that have been healed. Those are people that are filled with Christ's light. And so I think that's the people we need to gravitate towards. That's the message we need to hold. And the other people, we need to just love them until they can be healed, I guess, or like you love them into being, I don't know. Yeah, it's hard, but I think that's just kind of has helped me stay less bitter of whenever I encounter people that are judgmental of where I'm at in my life, or like, oh, you're gay, or you shouldn't even say that you're gay. It's same-sex attraction because if you're gay, you're living the lifestyle. And it's like, okay, whatever, that's a label, but how about let's just love? Or something. Yeah, yeah. So,
So funny. Again, share as much or as little as you'd like, but you brought up at the very end of, labels and being gay and active in the church, and um, again, share as much or as little as you'd like, but I'm really interested to hear what your walk and your journey right now looks like.
mhm. Yeah. Yeah, it's been interesting for me in terms of I think one thing that people don't quite understand, and again, and it's about making room in our congregations and in our hearts for people that aren't ever going to fit a particular mold, whatever that mold is we're trying to shove them into. Um, but I often hear, or people will say, "Well, your experience is no different than somebody that never gets the chance to get married, in this life. That is like heterosexual, and they just don't." And I hear that, and I hear the burden of those that don't have a chance to get married for some reason, whether they just don't find the right person or whatever the case may be. And they're like, well, you just got to, you remain celibate, you remain on the covenant path, God will take care of everything in the end. But the difference with that is that they still do have a hope, a chance of eventually getting married. And who knows, the right person could come into their life and they can get married and that type of thing.
Yeah.
With somebody that's gay, there's no hope
Yeah.
whatsoever, unless the only hope is you're going to get fixed in the next life. And that's horrible to say to somebody that they need to be fixed. That's something they feel that is a core part of them, and it's nothing as bad as you just love the same gender, if you will, the same sex, um, that you need to be fixed. And then eventually in the next life, what all of a sudden I'm going to want to marry a woman, and then all of a sudden everything works out. And it's like, that doesn't sound appealing to me whatsoever. That doesn't sound like heaven to me. And so I think that's a big difference that I think people need to understand more in the church, and just stop like kind of saying like, it will work out, you'll be fixed. Just stay celebrate and just stay single, and in the next life you'll get all the blessings and everything else that everybody else does. Like, Mm, that just that's not an answer. That's not, and so for me, what does that mean for me? I don't know. I don't have all the answers.
That's okay.
What I do know, is that I obviously, I think, for me, where I'm at right now is I do have. I call him my forever best friend, if you will. But you could almost look at us like we're boyfriends, if you will, or whatever you want to put a label on it. But we've both committed for now, and who knows? Again, could that change? I don't know. Could the church change? I don't know. Who knows? But for now, we're both committed to our covenants, and but we're also committed to one another. And it's hard to find somebody like that. But we did. We found each other. And so it's great. Right now, I'm happy. I'm great. I have
Mm.
somebody I again, we're like best friends. We travel, we spend time together, we're always together. You could label us, again, like I said, whatever you want to label us. But we're also active in the church. And there's people that judge us and are like, oh, you're kind of straddling the fence, or
You're on
you're
the edge of
playing
apostasy.
yeah, you're playing with fire. You're gonna fall off the cliff, that type of thing. Whatever. That's yours to judge. But luckily, we have a wonderful, amazing bishop, that he's accepting and he's loving, and he's like, "Hey, you answer these temple recommend questions. I don't need to know. You answer them. It's between you and God, like whatever. And so that's what I think we need more of, frankly, in the church is people to stop being nosy and just you live you, you do you, I do me. Let's love each other, that type of thing. So that's where I'm at right now. And wherever that turns out, again, I don't know. But I think, that's where you take it one day at a time and you just
Yeah.
enjoy the journey as you go.
That's beautiful. I'm glad you have someone.
Thanks.
I'm so glad you have someone. I'm so glad you have someone. That's beautiful.
I think it's important, you mentioned your you mentioned interviews with a bishop. I think that it's important that culturally, within the church and without, I think it's just really important that we extend trust and faith to others in the same way that we would hope to receive for ourselves. Trust that. Trust me that or me, you,
Yeah,
us, me,
yeah,
trust me that I am doing what I believe to be right, that I
yeah,
have a relationship with God, that I'm being honest with my communications with you, especially with the topic of speaking with a bishop
yeah,
or a clergy member, depending on your faith. Um, trust me that
yeah,
I'm being honest, that I'm telling the truth, that
yeah,
I am capable uh, of guiding my life.
yeah. Yeah. No, I think you're 100% right. And like you were saying, in terms of like, in the LDS tradition, faith, and obviously Catholic have, every faith tradition has some type of like judge in Israel, if you will, or
Yeah,
some type of
right, right.
clergy or leader that's supposed to kind of shepherd the
Mm-hmm.
congregation and hold
Right.
them to some type of standard. And I think just like you said, the message to them, I think needs to be, like you said, trust. I mean, I think obviously, in terms of like, I think, you need to obviously be protective of especially like children and that type of thing.
Of
And,
course.
but at the same time, nobody's perfect. And we realize that, that's doctrine, if you will. Like nobody's perfect, and that's why we have a Christ. That's why we have a Savior. Um, and so, under that premise, what clergy and leaders should be doing is pointing people back to Christ in everything they do, in every interaction. And it's about people's individual relationship
Mm-hmm.
with Christ. It's not with a relationship with a particular clergy, with a particular leader of the
Yes.
church, with a particular doctrine or policy or whatever in the
Yeah.
church. None of
Yes.
that matters.
Yes.
All of it is just about creating and building a personal relationship with Christ and with God. And
Again,
so
I say
that is
amen.
really the only thing that any leader or clergy should be doing is helping people build that personal relationship. And anything that takes away from that, they should stop doing immediately. Is kind of my view.
Yeah.
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 Absolutely.
Amen.
On
Oh, sorry. I'm like, rah.
I was just going to say on a previous episode with Julie De Jesus, she said that um, I hope I get this right. She said, "I don't think that God micromanages us as much as we think,
Yeah.
or as much as we are sometimes led to or inclined to believe." And with that, why are we micromanaging others so much? Not just church leaders or clergy, but us
As each other,
Yeah.
as a
Yeah.
interrelationally.
congregation.
Sharing this walk of life together. Um, if God isn't doing that, why? Who are we? Who are we to micromanage or judge others on their faith walk and their
Yeah.
walk through life when we don't even have maybe 2% of an understanding of something that they've gone through or what they're experiencing or what their connection with God or the divine is.
Yep.
We are just simply not in that position to do that for others,
Yep.
or even to ourselves. That's a really big responsibility to put on ourselves
Yep.
um, to think that we're responsible for I guess the salvation and redemption of others.
No, you're
um,
spot on.
like you
Yeah.
said, by all means, point each other towards God, towards Christ, towards love, towards compassion, all of the beatitudes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that we read about and that we're taught. Um, turn others or direct others
To
gently
the
towards
source
towards
of,
that.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like of rather than feeling like you need to lead them. And I know lots of people will say, well, we gotta, you gotta correct people or that type of thing. And it's like, why? That's not your place. But it's like just point them towards the
Towards
source, the
Christ.
truth, the light. Yeah. And,
Towards
and then
Christ.
and then just like give them a little gentle, loving shove and say, on your way, like enjoy. And if not, then I'll find you along the path because I'm probably going to stumble off it sometime too, or, that type of thing. And it's like, and I think, like you said, when you were talking, one thing that stuck in my mind, and we've already mentioned this, or I talked about it, is because I just look at myself and then also just as I've gotten to know other people or again sit with people in those moments and there's ashes and that type of thing is and it's not necessarily to excuse their behavior or to say or anything like that, but it's to understand. And every single time, I just continue to see it repeated over and over. Is usually every single time somebody, again, going back to every time I see somebody judging or nitpicking or anything that's like negative towards somebody, again, it usually goes back to some type of insecurity or wound that they have within themselves, and it's a projection of that. Like even again, like maybe they are being judgmental of something you're doing because they feel like you're getting away with something because they got in trouble for some doing something similar or whatever the case may be. And now they're like, I don't want to let them get away with it because I got in trouble for it. So, or something like it usually is always something that's about them rather than about you. And so that's just helpful to be able to view people in that light of saying, what wound are you projecting onto me? Not saying that I'm perfect or, I'm completely healed, but it's just usually all of our insecurities and things that we do that are negative towards other people it's usually something about us
Yeah.
rather than about them.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important to understand, not only for ourselves, but also for other people. So anytime you're doing something negative towards somebody or you're feeling some type of negativity towards somebody, it's an invitation to look inward and say, why do I feel that way? Why am I
Exactly.
why am I feeling so angry
Yeah.
or judgmental towards this person? And usually by looking inward, you're going to see something that you can address that is going
Yeah.
to
Exactly.
be much more positive towards you. And then it's going to free you up
Mm.
to be more loving towards
Mm.
others.
Exactly. And
Yes.
I think by doing that inner work and that inner reflection, um, we then embody the message of Christ.
Yes.
Exactly.
We become transformed. We become born again.
Yep.
We experience that shedding of limiting beliefs or whatever you would like to call that. And when we embody the love of Christ, when we embody um, true compassion, then more often than not, what I have found in moments when I really feel centered and grounded in that, I don't need to point or redirect others. I don't need to um, correct others. Just simply by existing within that truth for
Yep.
myself, um, I show up exactly as that person needs,
Yeah.
miraculously outside of my own uh, mankind understanding.
Because you're being a
um,
source of you've become the vessel
Yep.
of
yeah,
love of that.
Yes.
exactly,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Yes.
And so you don't need to go and tell somebody, oh, just you need to be loving, because that's not being
You're
loving.
embodying it, and they're still, yeah, exactly.
when
Yeah,
when you are when you embody that for yourself, and just simply lead with love and lead with that light, um, you're leading others towards that goodness. You're
yep,
setting the example of what it looks like, or what is possible for
yep,
others. Especially, I think, when we are vulnerable and real with vulnerable, real, authentic with our struggles that we have faced,
yep,
with these, not only the struggles that we have faced, but the struggles that we do face on a daily basis, however tiny they might be, and then still come back to that grounded, that centered feeling of being grounded and within the embodiment of the love of Christ. Um, Again, we set that example for others of like, oh, well, they've gone through this and they are experiencing something that I am experiencing. I'm not so far gone then.
yep,
And I say that putting myself as the example of being the embodiment of love, and I don't say that I'm perfect at that, but speaking from my own experience of being around others as well who have been that source of, like you said, that vessel of light and
yep,
love, when I have been in my darkest times.
yep,
Um, it's such a gentle and perfect redirection for myself
yep,
to come back to my center, come back to my own understanding and embodiment of love.
yep,
And it's truly brought healing for me and so many people that I know as well.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, thank you so much for
Thank
everything.
you.
Yeah.
This is, we get to have the best conversations.
We do.
I know. It's like, I don't know, maybe God's like, you need to do this so that you have great conversations and you can get through the trials that are coming and have been. I don't know. I hope people listen to this because, oh my gosh, this conversation has been absolutely
It
fantastic.
has been.
Patrick, you are a ray of light. And I keep shining, please, because we live in a world that has so much darkness. So please keep sharing the beautiful light that you do, because we need more of it.
In summary, I would just like to hear, I guess, a two minute wrap up of, in your own words, what you would like others to gain from hearing about your experience and the stories that you've shared, and also, in your opinion, how we all can be more unified on our walk through life together.
Yeah, no, thank you both for just having me and for this conversation. I've felt the spirit strongly, just the spirit of both of you, and just what you're creating and inviting into the world, which is just amazing and beautiful. And I think that's what we need more of. We need more people to drop the pretenses, to drop the barriers, the walls that we build, and just say, again, step into the vulnerability, step into that sacred space where we can recognize the humanity and the oneness that we all share.
Yes.
And we definitely need a lot more of that because we're all so much more alike than we are different. Like that's just, you know, period. Like there's really nothing that divides us that our unity doesn't really transcend. And so I think one thing that I've been thinking a lot about, and I don't know if it's just because of some things I've been reading or where the world's at right now or whatever the case may be. But I've been thinking about, in terms of the second coming. And I don't think about that in terms of like, oh, the world's so bad and when the second coming's coming soon. It's like not, I don't think of it as a doomsday. I've been thinking about it in the context of what does it really even look like? Um, and I think we don't quite understand at all what it's going to look like and what it's going to be. I think we are going to step into that more than it's going to be an event that happens to us.
Mm.
And by that, what I mean is we are going to in order for the second coming to come, we have to become the people that the second coming will be, like we have to become those people. We don't just an event happens and then we step into it. Like
We
it's
have to
going to
create Zion so Christ can come.
exactly. And so how does that happen? It's going to take a long time. I mean, it's gonna, but it's about becoming just everything we've talked about today in terms of that embodiment of Christ is love. It's about accepting. It's about dropping those wounds that we carry with us that make us feel judgmental or hateful or whatever towards people. It's about healing those, doing that inner work so that we become those spirits of light. We become that spirit of love, and welcoming and oneness, and I think that's what's gonna have to take place. And so we got a lot of work ahead of us, but I think these important conversations are where that takes place. And so what I would love for people to, get out of this episode, and our time together is just realizing that whatever past you've had, all that what if you will,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
it's time to drop that. It's time to turn away from that. Um, to use those wounds, you don't have to forget them. It's not about forgive and forget, but it's about using it to become better. Um, not bitter,
Yes.
and it's
Yes.
about becoming the message that you preach. It's about healing those wounds, dropping those feelings of judgment or hatred towards others because they don't serve you. They don't have a purpose. Your purpose is to step into a new being, into a new opportunity, a new life, where you can be freed up to experience how beautiful this life is, how wonderful it is to sit with people and just connect with them and understand that they are wounded too, and that you can love them and that you can create beauty together when you do that. And I think that's what we need more of is people. We need more people that we need less people holding on to wounds and more people stepping into healing and love. Because we have a lot of people that I think are just clinging to wounds and people will say, people play like the victim card or that type of thing, or there's lots of people that just want to, you know, yeah, and I don't know. I don't know why people do that. I think it's just easier sometimes, to, hold on to that and to build up a wall and say the world's bad or people are mean or that type of thing. But when you really get down to it, is that serving you? Is that making your life better? And I doubt anybody can really answer that it is. And so if it isn't, then why hold on to it? Let's let that go, and try to find a better space, to be able to feel just more joy and more happy and more love and more light. And I think we would have a much better world if we did that.
Absolutely.
Amen. For those who didn't watch me mouth amen. Amen. Thank you. This has been fantastic. Thank you
Truly.
so much.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you so much for joining us today. Truly, we appreciate it so very much. Thank you.
We will be in Utah together in November. I know that's quite a ways away for the Gather conference, but we would love to
Yeah.
meet you.
Yeah.
Like
Let's go
if
to
we could,
dinner or
Dinner.
lunch or something. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe we should do like a I'll walk with you dinner so we can have, like Richard Ostler and Ben
Yeah.
Schlotty and
Yeah.
Gainalin Condi, all of our I'll walk with you people, and we'll
That
just
would be amazing.
go to
That
dinner
would be
together.
amazing. Yeah.
That was so
Yeah.
great.
Patrick, thank you so much for joining us today. And to our listeners, thank you so much for joining us today. We love you. Please do what you can to spread love and light and learn to be the embodiment of that. Thank you again for tuning in for another episode of I'll Walk With You. Until next time, we love you.